Stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it is 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, with just 3 days to go until the US elections, I'll be giving my verdict on which of the two candidates would be best for Britain. The outcome is critical for the future of America, Britain and the free world. What happens on Tuesday matters hugely to you and me. Find out why in just a moment. In the big story, the Conservatives have a new leader. It is Kemi Badenoch. But can she save the Tory party and ultimately the country? I'll be asking Conservative Party legend Edwina Currie shortly. An explosive new Channel 4 documentary has just aired, revealing some shocking secrets about the royal family, which will impact King Charles, his son William and other members of the royal squad. I'll get reaction from King Charles's former personal butler before the end of the hour. Meanwhile, pop star Pharrell Williams has caused outrage with an appearance on the Graham Norton show last night, dressed in casual gear, baseball cap and wearing dark sunglasses for the whole interview. Have modern music stars lost all respect? I'll be asking one of the world's leading Frank Sinatra impersonators, who's currently embarked on a UK-wide tour celebrating the career of Old Blue Eyes. And I'm looking forward to this in my take at 10 in an hour's time. With a fearless new leader, the Tories are back. I'll be giving my first on-air reaction to the appointment of Kemi Badenoch, who has one of the biggest and toughest jobs in politics. And tonight's top pundits, I'm delighted to welcome political commentator and broadcaster Joanna Jarju, her first appearance on Mark Dolan Tonight, an old friend of mine, TV personality and writer Ingrid Tarrant, and a brand new second star on the show this evening. It's out with the old, in with the new, former Conservative MP and homelessness campaigner Brooks Newmark. So, 2 hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. My reaction to the news that Kemi Badenoch is the new Tory leader at 10, but lots to get through. Next up, the case for Donald Trump. First, the news headlines and Tatiana Sanchez.
Mark, thank you. The top stories. Kemi Badenoch has vowed to tell the truth and stand up for our principles as she was elected the new leader of the Conservative Party this morning. Badenoch defeated Robert Jenrick in a ballot of party members.
She's the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they made mistakes and let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader Rishi Sunak for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
While the Prime Minister has congratulated the new Tory leader, the Labour Party chair Ellie Reeves criticised the Conservatives for dragging out the leadership contest and not taking accountability for their time in government.
You know, we've spent the last 4 months with the Conservatives, rather than take any kind of responsibility for the mess that they've left the country in after 14 years of Conservative government, rather than take responsibility, they've just been talking to each other with more sort of division and chaos and infighting as this leadership election has played out.
Now, it's understood police investigating historical sex offence allegations against actor and comedian Russell Brand have handed a file of evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service. A statement from the Metropolitan Police said following an investigation by Channel 4's dispatchers and the Sunday Times in September 2023, the Met received a number of reports of sexual offences between 2006 and 2013 from women in London and elsewhere in the country. Russell Brand has denied all of the allegations made against him and said his relationships were always consensual. Now, just 3 days remain until US Election Day, and both Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and Democrat Kamala Harris are hitting the American South, continuing to make their closing arguments to voters. Donald Trump has made a pitch to voters in North Carolina this evening as the race for president nears its end. Will Trump accuse the Democrats of a coup for heaping pressure on Joe Biden to drop out of the race in July? Biden's exit made way for Kamala Harris. Well, Donald Trump said, "I think Joe might have done better." Meanwhile, Harris, who's been speaking at a campaign event in Atlanta, Georgia today, says Trump is increasingly unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and she also said he's out for unchecked power. And Covent Garden's famous Christmas tree has been handpicked and freshly harvested ahead of this year's festive season. For the 15th consecutive year, the 55-foot Norwegian spruce Christmas tree was chosen from Woods Farm, a 200-acre festive forest near Solihull in the West Midlands. Woods Farm also supplies festive trees to other notable locations such as Downing Street and Windsor Castle. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Congratulations to Kemi Badenoch, who is the new leader of the Conservative Party. So, is she Sir Keir Starmer's worst nightmare? I'll be giving my verdict in an hour's time in my take at 10. But first, my big opinion. God knows he's not perfect. There are not enough minutes in this 2-hour show to tell you everything that's wrong with Donald Trump. But let me have a go. Pathologically dishonest, a checkered past with women, a corrupt businessman, although show me a billionaire that isn't. He's unpredictable, he's undisciplined, he's mad, and he's probably the only narcissist in the world that would admit to being a narcissist. He'd probably be flattered by the description. No, I'd much rather have fearless Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in the White House, a war hero who governed by his freedom-loving principles during the pandemic, pushing back on COVID lockdowns, mask mandates and vaccine tyranny, delivering great outcomes for the Sunshine State and a fraction of the economic and societal damage. But you don't choose, do you, who goes on the ballot paper? And if it's Harris versus Trump, then for me, it's Trump all day long. He'll close the border, so far upwards of 11 million people have entered the United States illegally over the last 4 years. It's so bad, it's like the Spanish Armada compared to our current problems in the Channel. Trump will tackle the poison of woke ideology, which sees young children at elementary school being asked whether they're a boy or a girl today, and told to hate America and its past, and told to hate themselves if they have the wrong skin colour. The Democratic Party seems to be in the bosom of the military-industrial complex, where war has proved mightily profitable. Not to mention the pharmaceutical industry and their frothing enthusiasm for the jab. Trump will seek an end to the carnage in Ukraine by reaching out to both parties, knocking heads together, and, as is befitting the author of The Art of the Deal, getting a peace deal across the line. The safety of the world is probably the biggest argument for a Trump presidency, given that he was the first occupant of the White House in decades not to start a single conflict. And in fact, it was his idea for America to withdraw from Afghanistan in the first place, although he would have done it far better than the catastrophic way that it happened under the increasingly confused Joe Biden, who, let me tell you, is back in the news, filmed this week biting the ankles and legs of children at a Halloween celebration. Well, it beats sniffing their hair or discussing their sex life, I suppose. Terrifying that he is still president. So there are all sorts of practical reasons as to why Trump should prevail over Kamala. But what trumps all of those policy issues is principles. Although Trump spends a lot of the day thinking about himself, he has demonstrated that his other great love, alongside his reflection in the mirror, is the United States of America. He loves his own country. As a self-made billionaire, he didn't need to be president. Who wants to go through all of that hassle? And since his 4 years in charge, in which he grew the economy and reached out to tyrants like Kim Jong-un of North Korea and President Xi of China, the guy's been compared to Hitler, a profound insult to Jews who perished in the Holocaust, as well as being a lie. Trump has been dragged through the courts, suffered multi-million-dollar fines. He's been impeached, or at least they tried, and his ongoing liberty is still not a given. Oh, and as a result of being characterised as the devil incarnate by most of the US media, he has suffered at least 2 assassination attempts. But his response after taking a shot to his right ear in Pennsylvania was to look for his shoes, get back on his feet, and tell his supporters that he will fight, fight, fight. That is his character. Meanwhile, his opponent, Kamala Harris, responsible for that leaky southern border and widely agreed to be a disastrous vice president, only appointed to tick boxes, participated in the myth that somehow Joe Biden was in great shape, as sharp as ever mentally and busy running the country. Another flat-out lie from the American left, most egregiously spread and propounded by Biden's number 2, Ms. Harris. She enabled the lie, and she enabled what was effectively a fraud on the American people and a fraud on the world. So why does Tuesday matter to you and me? Well, because America's president is our president too. If Kamala Harris wins, expect 4 more years of US decline and of forever war, and Britain being a mere afterthought. Meanwhile, a Trump victory will be a trump card for America, Britain and the world, particularly as he loves the UK almost as much as he loves the US. Look, this man is far from perfect. But if Donald Trump wins on Tuesday, the future's bright, the future's orange. Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. Let's get reaction now from political commentator and broadcaster Joanna Jarju. I'm also delighted to welcome former Conservative Minister Brooks Newmark and a very old friend of mine, TV personality Ingrid Tarrant. Great to see all 3 of you. Brooks, let me get the ball rolling with you. Welcome to the show. Lovely to see you for the first time here. First of all, who do you think should win on Tuesday?
Good question. I mean, I've been a Republican when I was in the States. I worked for Bush Senior as a very young, when I was a student, in fact. So I'm of that wing of the Republican Party. So I'm a Reagan-Romney Republican. I think when it comes to the economy, I would say Trump is by far the better candidate. I think when it comes to dealing with China, Trump is by far the best candidate. I think when it comes to the Middle East, Trump is the best candidate. Where you and I will disagree, obviously, is going to be on Ukraine, where I've spent the first 2 years of the war, where Ukraine's a sovereign country. You can't have, as much as Trump wants to knock heads together, it's going to be very difficult unless he gives Putin what he wants, which is sort of 20%
Trump won't necessarily withdraw support from Ukraine. That's another, I think, sort of myth, isn't it, being peddled by the sort of liberal media in America?
No, I think he has. I think if you listen to J.D. Vance and what he has said, they will turn off the spigots. That's what they've said. They seem to think that they have given away $100 million to Zelensky. That's not the case. What they've done is given a lot of old equipment that they're no longer using to Ukraine, and the money is being spent, which is where I can't believe how stupid Joe Biden has been. I mean, they have been creating jobs for blue-collar workers by retooling, as you talk, the military-industrial complex, and creating jobs in America. But I think broadly, for the world and the world's economy, I think certainly Trump will be much better.
Joanna, what a treat to have you in the studio as well on a Saturday night. Listen, Donald Trump's not perfect. He's mad. He's a narcissist. He's unpredictable. He wouldn't be my choice. But by some distance, he's the lesser of two evils, isn't he?
Absolutely not. I think that when you look at Donald Trump's record, anybody that you ask, I mean, the fact that he's a convicted felon, that is embarrassing for America on the world stage. No matter how you try to, make excuses for him, he is an embarrassment, full stop. I think with Kamala Harris, I know that Trump, in the past has said, I've been able to make friends with this person, I'm best friends with Putin, Kim Jong-un would invite me around for dinner. That's fine, but at the same time, I think that in the grand scheme of things, I think Kamala will be able to keep a lid on certain things, and I think that she'll be able to keep her cool, basically, in certain situations. And just because Trump has had that record so far doesn't mean that in the future he has the temperament to be able to keep that up. And
Wouldn't you like the Democratic Party in America to offer a better candidate than Kamala Harris there?
I think that they have. I think that they've listened to the people in their party. I think they've listened to America.
Because there's a lot of talent in that party, and Kamala Harris is not an example of it, is she?
I think she absolutely is. I think that she's got the experience compared to Donald Trump. And I think that, she has done well in certain aspects. I know that, people will criticise Biden, but the gentleman here had just said that, the economy would be better under Donald Trump. But actually, I think that Bidenomics has been quite successful. And I think that the long-term planning that we've seen from Joe Biden in terms of investing in America, making sure that America is a lot more self-sufficient, those are the things that Kamala Harris is going to inherit, and I think those are the things that she'll push on with in the future.
Ingrid, a lot of people are torn about Donald Trump. Where do you stand on this?
I'm not torn too much on him. I actually like him. I have to say, I have...
Has that been a journey for you, or did you feel that all the way back in 2016 when he beat Hillary?
I felt it from the beginning.
Really?
Yes, I actually did.
You were an early adopter.
Yes, yeah. I tell you what I like about him. Yes, he is a bit of a nutcase, but he's absolutely honest. He shoots from the hip. It's heart, mouth, and it is.
So does he strike you as authentic, therefore?
Yes. Yes, it's a real foot and mouth. I do the same thing very often, so I kind of empathise as well, so I'm going to get this completely wrong.
I think you're a bit harsh on yourself. I think you're like William Shakespeare compared to Donald Trump. You're very articulate. Well, I mean, isn't this guy, unstable, probably narcissistic tendencies? Should somebody with his makeup have access to the nuclear codes?
Yes, I do think so, because... no, I do. Because I think that it's the way he delivers. It is the way he delivers. It's not conventional. He's not formulaic. He's not textbook. He is completely original and unique. He's passionate. And when you're driven by passion, it just comes out like a blurb. And that's what he's doing. He's a very clever businessman. He helped the economy enormously. He loves America. And also, yes, he does love England, which is very, very good. Britain, I should say. which is very good for us. His mother was Scottish, so he has a very close tie to this country anyway.
OK, now, Brooks, I agree with you that actually what's got to happen is Ukraine must defeat Russia, and I certainly wouldn't want to sort of switch off the taps, as it were, in regard to that conflict. But I'm enthused by one of the candidates that's talking about that war ending and that the death can stop and the carnage and the enormous cost, not just the US taxpayers, but indeed the rest of the world.
It's up to the people who have an existential crisis, which is the Ukrainians. It's their country.
But why isn't Kamala Harris?
It's not up for either.
Why isn't Harris talking about a deal?
It's not up for either Kamala, or however you pronounce her name, Harris, or Donald Trump to decide the destiny of Ukraine. It's up to the Ukrainians. And I think as long as it's Ukrainian blood that's being shed, not British blood, not American blood, not any European blood.
But we are aiding and abetting all along.
We're not aiding and abetting. We are supporting the Ukrainians. They have a right to defend themselves. They are a sovereign country.
Then you can't say that we shouldn't be involved, because we are straight away.
I think we have a much bigger obligation because of the Budapest Agreement. We said to the Ukrainians, you give up your nuclear weapons, we, the Brits, the Americans, and ironically the Russians, we will protect your sovereignty, which includes Crimea, which you and I had a debate about earlier.
Yes, but NATO did promise that they wouldn't, that there would be a buffer zone between the other countries and Russia, and that was agreed.
Joanna, briefly, are you concerned that if Trump gets in, that Ukraine will be thrown under the bus?
I think potentially. You know, the problem with Trump is that he kind of... It's his wording. I think even in terms of the things that he says, you know, just verbally could be something that actually causes quite a lot of conflict. We've got to remember that this is going to be the leader of the free world. So somebody who is really unpredictable with his words, really unpredictable in terms of his temperament, is dangerous for everybody.
OK, well, I think you will agree. My panel are coming in hot tonight. They return at 10 for my Take at 10, my first on-air reaction to Kemi Badenoch, new Tory leader, plus the papers at 10:30. A brilliant panel tonight, but let me tell you, more good news. It is November, almost the festive season. How would you like to win your celebrations on us this year? Here are the details for our Great British Giveaway. OK, folks, coming up in the big story, there is only one story in town. The Tories have a new leader, Kemi Badenoch, but can she save the Conservative Party and ultimately the country? I'll be asking Tory party legend Edwina Currie next.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Let's speak now to Charlie Mullins, who's the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, and entrepreneur Oliver Hodgson. Really good to see you both this morning. Charlie, let's start with you. Has working from home and the culture surrounding working from home killed work experience, do you think?
Undoubtedly. Many companies now are not getting youngsters in for the work experience because of the fact they don't have the staff in. So if they're only in 2 days a week, they're not going to get in the youngsters. They've got no one to train them. So it's killed it totally. And if you think it's bad now, probably 4 or 5 years from now, it'll be absolutely ridiculous. This working from home, I said from day one, is going to kill youngsters' futures, youngsters' careers, and getting people into the workplace. So now the damage is showing through, unfortunately. COVID finished a couple of years ago. The working from home should have stopped and get people back into the workplace.
I mean, Oliver, you have to say it's difficult to see how people in a work-from-home environment can do any sort of on-the-job training at all.
It's really interesting, the work experience piece, actually, because we ran an internship program in the summer here. We had 5 people in the office in person and they really thrived. But we did have a couple of people who joined remotely because of their own reasons, right, and where they were. I think it's a bit more nuanced than that as well, because I've got clients who have completely remote teams. Now, I don't. I have an office and our team are based in here. But our clients who do, they're able to offer work experience opportunities digitally with fantastic technology to people across the world, right? So they have people in their team who are working from all sorts of different continents, which is obviously fantastic. But I agree with Charlie, right? You cannot knock in-person engagement. You cannot knock being in the office.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It is time now for this. Now, let me tell you, folks, it is time for the big story. And after a marathon contest that lasted several months, the Conservatives have a new leader, Kemi Badenoch, who will now be tasked with restoring the party's fortunes following their worst election defeat in over a century. So, is she the woman for the job? Let's speak to a genuine legend of the party, radio and television broadcaster and former Conservative government minister under Margaret Thatcher, Edwina Currie. Edwina, lovely to see you again. Is Kemi the woman for the job?
Oh, absolutely. And may I say, just before I get on to Kemi, what a brilliant panel you've got there tonight. And tell Brooks Newmark I'm totally on his side. Ukraine has got to defeat Russia for the sake of all of us, to make sure that we all have the freedom that we have and that we're exercising tonight. And I'm sure Kemi would say exactly the same. She might say it with a slightly more clipped accent than I have, but and much smarter snoots than I have. But I think she's very good. I must say, when the announcement was made, Mark, I felt quite relieved. I thought, oh, goodness, yes, we have somebody who is aware of how economies work, who is aware of how philosophies and cultures work, who's got a very big mind. She's lived abroad. She is from a very diverse background. She's an extremely clever lady. My goodness me. I think that augurs extremely well. And there are parallels, as I'm sure you're aware. Margaret Thatcher was a scientist and Kemi is a computer scientist, computer engineer. Margaret Thatcher was 49, Kemi is 43. Margaret was in opposition as leader for 4 years, so she had plenty of time to get into the job. And one of the key things there is you have to learn how to take complex ideas and express them in simple terms and simple, elegant terms. Margaret became an absolute dab hand at it, and she wasn't right to begin with. So I think, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting time. And actually, Kemi is better than Margaret in the House of Commons. She made absolute mincemeat of Angela Rayner during the Queen's speech debate. It was very, very funny. And Angela Rayner had no answer. I can't imagine anybody else could have done as well. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Some have suggested that she's very argumentative, she's pugnacious, that she would pick a fight with her own reflection. Are you concerned about her temperament?
Oh, that sounds to me like a whole string of compliments. I mean, if you said those about me, I would just say, oh, thank you so much, you noticed. No, you need to have somebody who's not just prepared to say, yes, I agree with everybody, or yes, I'm going to agree with the easiest point. Goodness, Mark, you wouldn't be on GB News if that was the case, now would you? No. It's not something that we want. We might want it in a prime minister who's got to make compromises, got to get on with people, got to be nice to world leaders that they really can't stand or agree with. But that's not what you need to be when you're leader of the opposition. Your job, your official job, is to hold the government to account. And that means you've got to have a laser eye for where they're making mistakes and making a mess of things and call them out and actually do that very fiercely, very vigorously, very quickly.
Edwina, the party appears split over issues like Britain's membership of the European Convention on Human Rights. You know that leading the Tories is like herding cats. Can she unite this rabble?
I don't think membership of the ECRG or whatever it was called, the European Convention on Human Rights, which we actually helped to write back in the 1950s under conservative governments. I don't think that actually was an issue. Robert Jenrick thought it was, and he was decisively defeated. So the party has had its view on that. It's a distraction. What you can't be doing is demanding that we're going to do something that we're not going to do. This country is not going to come out of conventions as significant as that. We might seek to try and improve our own court system so that we can get asylum seekers dealt with a lot faster and that the appeals system is not as favourable to them. Many countries don't have appeals against that at all. And that's the sort of thing that I think a future government might do. Can't see this government doing anything about that, can you?
Well, I'll have to say I agree with you on that one, but Labour will argue they're deploying all of our resources to smash the criminal gangs. They would argue that Rwanda was a colossal waste of money and time. Everyone's entitled to their view, Edwina. Can we talk about Robert Jenrick, who ran a compelling and energetic campaign? He needs to be given a big job now, doesn't he?
Well, he had a big job before. I mean, I think he was in charge of very important things before. I can't remember.
Immigration minister.
Yeah, well, he didn't make a big success of that, did he? He didn't. I mean, you get to the stage of thinking, you know what, Robert? You had a wonderful new haircut. You're very smart. You're very clean. You took lots of Wegovy or whatever it was to lose weight. Well done. Excellent. Now you're ready to face, I don't know, Wes Streeting, possibly.
OK, there you go. So potentially shadow health secretary. Edwina, is the election of the Conservatives' first black female leader significant, or do these things not matter anymore?
I think it's wonderful that it's not something that stood in Kemi's way at all. What was striking about her was her intellect, her personality, her character, and her background in that sense was a big plus, because having lived in a country like Nigeria, and as she said, I heard her at the hustings saying, you know what, I live in a country where everybody looks like everyone else, but they're all fighting each other. So what we look like actually isn't significant. It feels like a small step forward for the Conservative Party, and perhaps a big step forward for the country. The fact that, as Rishi Sunak has said more than once, it's no big deal. It's a big deal for the Labour Party. I mean, we're on our fourth woman leader, and they have never got round to having anybody except a middle-aged, pale, male, boring bloke.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those, so people in glass houses. Let me tell you, Edwina, that Margaret Thatcher was a trailblazer, Kemi Badenoch is a trailblazer, and you are a trailblazer as well, in politics, in broadcasting and beyond. Always a treat to have you on the show. Please come down and see us in the studio next time you're in the capital.
Will do.
Brilliant stuff. My thanks to former government minister and broadcaster Edwina Currie with a big thumbs up for Kemi Badenoch. Well, I'll be giving my verdict on the new Tory leader in my take at 10 at 10 o'clock. But next up, an explosive new Channel 4 documentary that's just aired reveals some shocking secrets about the royal family, which will impact King Charles, his son William, and other members of the royal squad. I'll get reaction from King Charles's former personal butler next.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The theme colour for many of us this weekend has certainly been grey. A blanket of cloud is covering most of the UK at the moment, and it will be staying with us as we head throughout this evening and overnight. For any bonfire celebrations this evening, largely dry, but certainly there could be a spot of drizzle around in places to watch out for. But generally staying dull and dreary until the early hours of the morning, really. Underneath that cloud, though, it will be a relatively mild night, around 10 degrees Celsius for most, but for the far northeast of Scotland there, where we do hold on to some clearer spells, it will start off on a bit of a chillier note first thing. We could see some patchy frost for the likes of Murray, Aberdeenshire, maybe into Angus as well, and here we'll certainly see the best of the sunshine throughout much of Sunday. The breeze we've had around northern Scotland will ease off tomorrow compared to what we have seen today, but for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, it is quite a homogeneous story. Lots of widespread low cloud around, misty and murky around coastal districts as well as over the hills. Again, there will be some spots of drizzle around, particularly around Irish Sea coastal areas. Temperatures tomorrow will be a touch down compared to what we have seen today, more in the line of around 12, 13 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit closer to what we'd expect for the time of year, but it certainly is going to be feeling relatively chilly because of the lack of sunshine that we do have around across the board. As we head into the new working week, the high pressure that is bringing us all of this cloud and the relatively calm conditions is staying with us, so there's not really going to be a grand deal amount of change. But a slight shift in wind direction to more of a southeasterly could on Monday provide a little bit more in the way of brightness to develop across the far southeast during the day, but also across some far western areas of Western Wales, parts of Northern Ireland into Western Scotland as well, potentially seeing the sunshine managing to poke through at times. Otherwise, though, the cloud really is staying with us throughout much of next week, although by the time we get to the middle point, it should be turning a touch milder for all of us. Temperatures back up towards 15 degrees in places. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, folks. Listen, I'll be giving my verdict on new Tory leader Kemi Badenoch in my take at 10. But Channel 4 has unearthed some extraordinary revelations in regards to King Charles, Prince William and the royal family. In a Dispatches show, which has just aired, it has been revealed that in collaboration with the Times newspaper, Dispatches have revealed the full details of the property estates owned by King Charles and Prince William and the tax-free business deals that they struck to maintain their wealth. The King is worth £610 million, according to the Times and the Sunday Times. And for the first time, every plot of land owned by the King and Prince are thought, through their private fiefdoms, the Duchy of Lancaster and the Duchy of Cornwall, means that, in fact, this family is even richer than we might have imagined. Now, the allegation is essentially that the royal family are making a fortune as a result of tax breaks at the taxpayers' expense to the tune of many millions. Let's get reaction now from a man who knows King Charles better than most and admires him greatly, the King's former butler, Harold Grant. Good to see you. Listen, are you surprised by the revelations of this documentary, the sheer scale of the business empire operated by the royal family, which appears to enjoy the largesse of the British taxpayer?
Green Mac, yeah, I'm obviously slightly surprised as much as everyone else. I think, from my point of view, I've lived in Duchy properties, so I'm as a rentee, if you like, obviously at one point, and I was always aware. I don't know if you know this, but I was told that if you die with a will in a Duchy property, your assets go to the Duchy, to the Prince, which I don't know if many people know that, but that was one of the things I was kind of made aware of.
So don't stay overnight if you've got a bad cold.
Don't stay overnight if you've got a bad cold. I think what's difficult, Mark, is obviously it's quite serious because we're still in that point where people obviously struggling to pay everyday bills, and when you hear this, of course, questions are going to be raised. I think the one thing I was kind of reflect back on, and I think you know what I'm saying, Mark, is that over the years, obviously the accounts being looked at, the royal family do generate a lot of money through tourism. I don't know the exact figures these days, but it was over 500 million at one point. Yeah. Obviously, they make a lot of money from the Crown Estates. It's given back to the Treasury. They're then given the money back, if you like, a kind of wage and allowance, which we all know about. This is slightly different because this is the property portfolios. And obviously, this is private. Well, I say it's private. Obviously, it's important for the public domain, but it has always been quite private. And obviously now it's been made, it's been disclosed what it's costing, what the kind of money that they're making, and it will raise eyebrows. People will question it. The only thing I will say in the defence, and I don't know this for a fact, Matt, but what I do know with the King is a lot of money that he makes, he always puts it back into his charities. That's an absolute fact. If you, I don't know if you've been to the Highgrove Gardens or the Highgrove Shop, and that's
beautiful.
the one thing for him is he's very much about putting the money back into the charities to help others. So that's the only thing I can see in his defence. I don't know if it's the same with the property portfolio. I don't know what happens with that money. I don't know where it goes. I'd like to think that he will probably be using that to go back into charities, but that bit I don't know.
Well, I agree. I mean, I don't consider King Charles to be a greedy individual. He's quite parsimonious, like his mother. I mean, yes, he's royal, he's a monarch, but, I don't really see this guy as a particular financial opportunist. But some of the details in the Times are quite surprising, Grant. In a 5-month investigation, the Times and Channel 4 used the royal addresses to uncover their business contracts and discovered how the duchies are making millions of pounds each year by charging government departments, councils, businesses, mining companies and the general public via a series of commercial rents and feudal levies on land largely seized by medieval monarchs. So clearly they're enjoying a historic and constitutional advantage there. Do you think there'll be a shake-up of all of this now that this documentary has aired?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the other thing, Mark, is a lot of what goes on with these kind of things. I'm not saying that the King doesn't know about them, because he's very intelligent. He knows exactly what's going on. But obviously there's certain things that he might not be aware of, because at the end of the day, he's got other things he's thinking about. So he will be aware of this now, if he's not already aware of it. And you can almost guarantee that tomorrow, Monday morning, questions will be getting raised, because the one thing he will not want to do, he will not want people to think that he's got this amazing wealth, that he's enjoying this amazing lifestyle. Yes, they've got a lovely lifestyle. Yes, they live in, I've witnessed it, I've been with them where they live in castles and palaces, but he's very much somebody who, he doesn't live the kind of billionaire lifestyle, if I can say that. I've watched him. I say, this is a man who wears jackets that he has patched up so that he can keep wearing them. Do you know what I'm saying? He doesn't just go out every day and buy a brand new jacket. So he's not like that. He really isn't like that. So I think, I'm not saying, obviously they've done the research, and I'm sure the research has been done properly, and the money is obviously coming in. What it's been used to, where it's going to, that's what the questions will be obviously raised. And you're pretty sure that he'll even be probably wondering, where is the money going? What is happening to it? Because he will want answers so that he can actually make sure the public are aware. Because, at the moment with so many things going on, the monarchy is obviously different times, and he won't want to leave it open for scrutiny. So he'll want to make sure that there's answers to things.
Well, indeed. I mean, this is clearly an historic legacy that he's inherited. Just a couple of other details, Grant. The duchy files show that the royals charge for the right to cross rivers, offload cargo onto the shore, run cables under beaches, operate schools and charities, and even dig graves. They earn revenue from toll bridges, ferries, sewage pipes, churches, village halls, pubs, you name it. Although I'd like to strike a note of sympathy here for the King, because they're damned if they do and damned if they don't, wouldn't you argue? They're either entrepreneurial and pay their own way, or they're just sort of, sponging off the state. Which is it? I mean, the bottom line is that there is money to be made thanks to the system that the King has inherited. But I think this is historic precedent rather than corruption or greed.
I agree with you, Matt. And I think the other thing is, if you look at I'm not just saying it's him. If you look at aristocracy in general, or business people in general, they've got property portfolios. They make money from, as you just said, entrepreneurs. He is an entrepreneur. I mean, he's the King, monarch. But he is also a businessman. He's a very intelligent businessman. I mean, that's why he's been successful with these charities. So, but he is a businessman, and he's got a business portfolio. He's got the properties, and he's going to make a revenue from them. But every year, obviously the accounts are looked at very closely, and he's aware of that. So they're not going to do anything silly. I'd like to think they wouldn't do anything silly. And all I can say is, if he's not aware, should really surprise me if he's not, but he's not aware, you can guarantee that he will now be aware. He'll be aware that we're all talking about it, and he will want answers so that he's able to kind of put out there what is happening to that money, where it's going. But also, there's a part of it where you kind of think, well, it is his property portfolio. It is a private thing. Obviously, it's got to be in the public domain, but it's also a private thing as well. So it's what you said. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't when it comes down to the royal family.
Grant, really great to see you. We'll catch up soon. My thanks to Royal Butler Grant Harold. Fascinating conversation. But folks, lots more to come. Don't forget, in my Take at 10 in 20 minutes' time, my first on-air reaction to the new Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch. But next up, pop star Pharrell Williams has caused outrage with an appearance on the Graham Norton show last night. Dressed in casual gear, baseball cap and wearing dark sunglasses for the whole interview. So have modern music stars lost all respect? I'll be asking one of the world's leading Frank Sinatra impersonators, who's currently embarked on a UK-wide tour celebrating the career of Old Blue Eyes. That's next.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Maria, potholes are the bane of everybody that uses a road, whether you're a car driver or a cyclist. As a cyclist, are even worse. How have we got into this situation where our roads are in such a bad state?
Well, part of it is to do with actually our climate. In somewhere like, say, Sweden, like the snow will fall on the ground, it will stay there for months. Whereas here, we've got what's called a freeze-thaw climate, where the water comes down, then we might have a cold snap and it freezes, and the water within the pothole will then expand and make the pothole bigger. Then we might have a mild spell, and then that process repeats. So, we do actually need extra funding to acknowledge the fact that, we just live in a climate where we're sort of particularly vulnerable to potholes.
Why? I mean, the fact that this happens, these weather conditions happen, is no great surprise to anybody. Why has the problem been ignored for so long?
I think what's happened is we've had like short-term funding. So it's like, oh, there's a pothole, let's patch it up. Oh, there's another one, let's patch it up. But the patches aren't actually really that strong, so then they break down again. So, really what we need is to have roads completely resurfaced, and then they'll just be pothole-free for a very long time. And that really is how funding should be. That's the direction funding should go in, as opposed to just sort of like dribs and drabs here and there.
Do you think this government are going to be good for the motorist, or is there indeed a war on the motorist still?
The different parties come in and they've all got different policies that they wheel out, then they cancel the policies, and then there's so much lack of transparency. Like, for example, with the pothole issue, sometimes the government, whichever government is in office, will do some big showboating about how they're going to give X amount of potholes, and you still think that sounds really good.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
My Take at 10 in just 10 minutes' time. My reaction to the appointment of Kemi Badenoch as Tory leader. But first, this. Now, the pop star Pharrell Williams has caused outrage with an appearance on the Graham Norton show last night, dressed in casual gear, baseball cap and wearing dark sunglasses for the whole interview. Have modern music stars lost all respect? Who better to ask than one of the world's leading Frank Sinatra impersonators, David Lacey, who is currently embarked on a UK-wide tour which kicks off tomorrow at the Prince's Theatre in Clacton-on-Sea, celebrating the career of old Blue Eyes Frank Sinatra in a show called The Rat Pack, Christmas in Vegas. Well, I'll give more details of that show at the end of the chat, but I'm delighted to say that David Lacey joins me now. David, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Listen, pop star Pharrell Williams, dressed in sports gear. He looks like he's on his way to the gym. Yeah. Dark sunglasses for the whole interview. That is not how Frank Sinatra operated.
No, I mean, if you watch Frank doing Johnny Carson, any of those shows, he turned up in a tuxedo. You know, but that's what he wore on stage, and he wore it on interviews. So maybe if he wears that on stage, that's up to him. But really, you've got to show some respect when you're on television. And, you know, I could have come along in dark shades tonight, but I didn't. So.
No, I'm glad you're not in your sports gear as well. Yeah. Your new theatre show, The Rat Pack Christmas in Vegas, represents sophistication, glamour and cool, doesn't it? Have we lost a bit of that these days, do you think?
I think we have. You know, I think if you think back to even the 70s, people in the theatre were wearing bow ties, just going to see a show. They would dress up. And now we've got people with rucksacks in the audience and things like that, trainers. We've changed. We've lost that style, that glamour. And I think that's the same, not just here, but in the States, in Vegas. You know, in the casinos, people are wearing trainers. It's changed immensely.
Well, that's right. And can you take us back to that era of the Rat Pack and just give us a sense of what a really big deal it was in the 1960s?
Well, it was, of course. I mean, that was a big night out, you know, to see Frank, Dean or Sammy in Vegas.
Yeah, Dean Martin and Sammy
Davis Jr. in Vegas. They were the biggest acts and the biggest draws in
Vegas. Each of them were the biggest stars, and then together, that must have been monumental.
It was a massive entity.
Like a supergroup.
Yes, absolutely. The very first supergroup. And to see them live together was something else. And you couldn't get a ticket. Basically, it was the hottest ticket in town.
So it was equivalent to One Direction or whatever you like, the Oasis reunion.
And what you've got to remember, they were only playing to a sort of an 800-seat cabaret room, which is why later, in the 80s, that when they got back together, they had to play arenas because there were so many people that hadn't seen them.
What made Frank Sinatra special?
Well, I think it wasn't just the singing, it wasn't just the acting, it was the whole persona. And what you've got to remember, we're in the right place. He was also deeply interested in politics and his other private life. All of those issues made this persona, Sinatra. There will never be another one.
And when he sang those songs, it really felt like he'd been on that journey.
Well, of course.
My Way and the other sort of hits of
I mean,
life.
when he sang, you know, about lost love, he had lost love with Ava Gardner, you know.
Yeah. Was she the great love of his life?
Absolutely, the great love of his life.
And she essentially dumped him, didn't she?
Yes, she did, yeah. And, you know, he really never got over that, but he did find love in the end with Barbara, who was, you know, a wonderful wife to him.
Jazz legend Buddy Greco said your depiction of Sinatra is so accurate that it's actually frightening. How do you become old Blue Eyes on stage?
Well, I was fortunate that I got to see Sinatra live twice, in 1990 and 92. My parents took me. I was only a kid then. I was only that high.
Yeah.
But
it made a mark on you, did it?
It really did, because I saw this guy in his 70s able to command an arena. And when I left stage school, I thought, you know, I'll base an act on that. Nobody was doing it at the time. Yeah. I'll base an act on that. Little did I know that all these years later I'd still be doing it. But it's given me an amazing life.
And could he still carry a tune in his 70s?
Absolutely. Yeah, people think that he had lost the voice had got a little gruffer, but no.
No different to McCartney or Elton John?
Absolutely, yeah. He could command an audience. You know, back then he was being slated for having auto cues, but now every act, including singers that write their own material, using auto cues.
Yeah, indeed. Very briefly, if you can, I want to give details of the show. What about Sinatra the man? Tell me about his personality. What kind of character was he? Was he prickly? Was he difficult?
He was very complex, of course. You know, he couldn't sleep. We have so many similarities. He couldn't sleep at night, and he was his famous quote, "I'm for anything that gets you through the night."
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, a manic depressive in some sense, but also a very generous man. And, you know, he gave so much and to charities, and he wouldn't let anyone know about it. That was the great thing about Sinatra. He didn't let anyone know. He would make massive donations, but said, if anyone finds out, you know, they're gone. So,
well, listen, it's extraordinary that you're covering his career. You are a doppelganger for Sinatra. I will spare you giving us a turn tonight because I realise you charge a lot for personal appearances. But what you've got to do is you've got to head to the Rat Pack. It is called the Rat Pack Christmas in Vegas. It kicks off tomorrow at the Princess Theatre in Clacton-on-Sea. They're also off to East Grinstead, Grimsby, the Isle of Wight and beyond. The website you need, I understand, is, let me just make sure I've got this, theratpacklive.co.uk. theratpacklive.co.uk. Treat yourself to what will be a brilliant show. Next up, my take at 10, the Tories have got a new leader.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The theme colour for many of us this weekend has certainly been grey. A blanket of cloud is covering most of the UK at the moment, and it will be staying with us as we head throughout this evening and overnight. For any bonfire celebrations this evening, largely dry, but certainly there could be a spot of drizzle around in places to watch out for. But generally staying dull and dreary until the early hours of the morning, really. Underneath that cloud, though, it will be a relatively mild night, around 10 degrees Celsius for most, but for the far northeast of Scotland there, where we do hold on to some clearer spells, it will start off on a bit of a chillier note first thing. We could see some patchy frost for the likes of Murray, Aberdeenshire, maybe into Angus as well, and here we'll certainly see the best of the sunshine throughout much of Sunday. The breeze we've had around northern Scotland will ease off tomorrow compared to what we have seen today, but for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, it is quite a homogeneous story. Lots of widespread low cloud around, misty and murky around coastal districts as well as over the hills. Again, there will be some spots of drizzle around, particularly around Irish Sea coastal areas. Temperatures tomorrow will be a touch down compared to what we have seen today, more in the line of around 12, 13 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit closer to what we'd expect for the time of year, but it certainly is going to be feeling relatively chilly because of the lack of sunshine that we do have around across the board. As we head into the new working week, the high pressure that is bringing us all of this cloud and the relatively calm conditions is staying with us, so there's not really going to be a grand deal amount of change, but a slight shift in wind direction to more of a southeasterly could on Monday provide a little bit more in the way of brightness to develop across the far southeast during the day, but also across some far western areas of Western Wales, parts of Northern Ireland into Western Scotland as well, potentially seeing the sunshine managing to poke through at times. Otherwise, though, the cloud really is staying with us throughout much of next week, although by the time we get to the middle point, it should be turning a touch milder for all of us. Temperatures back up towards 15 degrees in places. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
On demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe. Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Welcome to State of the Nation,
daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. It is 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online. In the United Kingdom and across the world, this is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my take at 10, with a fearless new leader in charge, the Tories are back. I'll be giving my first on-air reaction to the appointment of Kemi Badenoch, who has one of the biggest and toughest jobs in politics. Also tonight, is Kemi Badenoch Labour's worst nightmare? And will she make hell for Sir Keir Starmer? We'll hear from a legendary former Tory MP and a former Labour MP as well. Let me tell you, sparks will fly. Plus, for ringside action, tonight's top pundit, political commentator and broadcaster Joanna Jarju, television personality and writer Ingrid Tarrant, and former Conservative MP and homelessness campaigner Brooks Newmark. So lots to get through. Kemi Badenoch, my verdict, straight after the news headlines, and Tatiana Sanchez.
Mark, thank you very much. The top stories. Kemi Badenoch has vowed to tell the truth and stand up for our principles as she was elected the new leader of the Conservative Party. Badenoch defeated Robert Jenrick in a ballot of party members. She's the fourth female leader and the first ever black leader of the party. In her acceptance speech, she said the Tories have to be honest about the fact they made mistakes and let standards slip. She also praised the outgoing leader Rishi Sunak for getting the party through a tough time.
It is the most enormous honour to be elected to this role, to lead the party that I love, the party that has given me so much. I hope that I will be able to repay that debt. I also want to thank Rishi. No one could have worked harder in such difficult times. Rishi, thank you for everything you did. We all wish you and your wonderful family the very best for the future.
Now, details about the royal family's finances, including rent received from the NHS, schools and the armed forces, have been revealed as part of a new documentary. In the investigation by Channel 4's Dispatches and The Sunday Times, it's been reported that the private estates of King Charles and Prince William have received millions of pounds of income from contracts with public bodies and charities. It's been claimed that over the past year, these deals with the Duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall have been worth almost £50 million. While a spokesperson for the Duchy of Lancaster, the private estate of King Charles, said it complies with all relevant UK legislation and regulatory standards applicable to its range of business activities. It's understood police investigating historical sex offence allegations against actor and comedian Russell Brand have handed a file of evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service. A statement from the Met Police said following an investigation by Channel 4's Dispatches and The Sunday Times in September last year, the Met received a number of reports of sexual offences between 2006 and 2013 from women in London and elsewhere in the country. Russell Brand has denied all of the allegations made against him and said his relationships were always consensual. Now, just 3 days remain until US Election Day, and both Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and Democrat Kamala Harris are hitting the American South, continuing to make their closing arguments to voters. Donald Trump made a pitch earlier this evening to voters in North Carolina. As the race for president nears its end, Trump accused the Democrats of a coup for heaping pressure on Joe Biden to drop out of the race in July. Biden's exit, of course, made way for Kamala Harris. Donald Trump said, "I think Joe might have done better." Meanwhile, Harris, who's been speaking at a campaign event today in Atlanta, Georgia, says Trump is increasingly unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and she also said he's out for unchecked power. And the drug watchdog has warned it's received up to 10 reports of deaths linked to weight loss jabs such as Ozempic. Cases of serious reactions to the drug, including nausea and vomiting, are now in the thousands. This comes as the General Pharmaceutical Council announced plans for additional safeguards to ensure online pharmacies are properly checking patient information. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. Back to Mark Dolan tonight.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Busy show to come, tomorrow's papers and my top pundits with their reaction. But first, my take at 10. The results are in. The job that, frankly, no one in their right mind should ever want has been awarded to fearless anti-woke warrior Kemi Badenoch. Let's be honest, following the elimination of Tory centrist James Cleverly, whose team not so cleverly assumed that he was going to win, the party faithful have for once been offered a choice of two actual Conservatives. I know, imagine my surprise. And both candidates have terrific qualities. Robert Jenrick has emerged from the clutches of the Remain One Nation Tory crowd, who are, if we're honest, glorified Liberal Democrats. And he has demonstrated a sincere concern about the direction of the party and of the country. If Kemi Badenoch is smart, and I'm pretty sure she is, she will accommodate Jenrick's bold ideas, including reducing legal net migration drastically and rethinking the ECHR and the Human Rights Act in order to stop the boats, which, let's not forget, remains a humanitarian, economic and national security disaster. A credible plan to end those crossings alone could see the Tories back in power in 5 years' time, embarrassing Labour and neutralising reform in one fell swoop. Following a relatively tight race and a decent turnout of well over 70%, Kemi Badenoch must now make Robert Jenrick a key figure in her political revolution. The man who yesterday was her opponent should today be her colleague, friend and political secret weapon. The weakness of Badenoch's campaign, if there was one, was a lack of substance. But with bold plans for taxation, the NHS, the role of the state and our constitution, Jenrick has substance in abundance. But in the end, despite Badenoch offering more poetry than policy, the membership followed their gut and chose a candidate that is the real deal. Authentic, fearless and a conservative to her core. Having experienced socialism in Nigeria whilst growing up, she has a profound allergy to leftist ideology. She's seen how divisive and toxic it is. And, as this week's budget will prove in the years ahead, what a failed economic model it is as well. Which is why Badenoch must transform the Tories from being the con-socialists to the Conservatives again. Her job is to fix the party before she fixes the country. And that starts with taking on the Tory wets, as Margaret Thatcher did in 1979. Now, I'll deal with Nigel Farage and the threat of Reform UK to the Conservative cause tomorrow in a Take at 10 special. But for now, the Conservative Party, the most effective political machine in the history of Western democracy, can celebrate a vibrant, exciting new leader who will make headlines, will make noise and will make trouble. Let's not forget, this is a party that gave the world Winston Churchill, who defeated fascism and saved the West. It's the party of Margaret Thatcher, who liberated the working class and sparked an economic revolution. It is the party of, yes, Boris Johnson, who, notwithstanding the disaster of ruinous lockdowns and COVID tyranny, saved us from a Jeremy Corbyn-led government and liberated us from the clutches of Europe. Ultimately, today is a good result for the Conservative Party and for the country. Here is part of a piece that I wrote about Kemi's victory in today's Daily Telegraph, which, let me tell you, made quite the splash. I wrote, well, Kemi can tackle illegal immigration without being called racist. She will make mincemeat of Sir Keir Starmer in the House of Commons. PMQs will be weekly must-see TV, and she will stand up to the worst excesses of woke. Indeed, she will. The Prime Minister will be bricking it tonight, absolutely bricking it. Following Labour's catastrophic Halloween budget, which has consigned us to 5 years of low growth, high tax and eye-watering debt, I can't think of a time when we've needed a strong opposition more. And we've got that in spades with the fearless trailblazer that is Kemi Badenoch. The Tories are back, folks. It is game on. And considering what's coming his way, Sir Keir Starmer might want to invest in a pair of brown trousers. Your reaction to the appointment of Kemi Badenoch as the leader of the Tories, gbnews.com/your say. But first, tonight's top pundits. I'm delighted to welcome entrepreneur and social commentator Joanna Jarju, TV personality and broadcaster Ingrid Tarrant, and former Conservative MP Brooks Newmark. Great to see all three of you in the studio. Ingrid, Kemi, is she the one for the job?
I fear not. I'm not a huge fan. I'm going to say things that are going to upset an awful lot of people, but this is how I say it. I'm not convinced by her. I don't listen. She doesn't engage with me at all. And another thing, and this is where I could get myself into trouble a little bit.
Oh, go on.
Go on. I just think it's very virtue signalling because every single person is saying, you know, the first black Conservative leader. And I just wonder if in the choice of the 4 or 5 that were running, that was a little bit of a tactic to turn around to say to Labour, look, you haven't even got one woman, but we've had an Asian Prime Minister and now we have the first black Conservative.
And she's the 4th woman as well.
I don't think that was the reason.
No, I'm being cynical. I am being cynical. But the thing is, it could be true. We don't know.
Joanna, what do you think, Joanna?
So I think that there is something to be said that they saw that as a benefit and that maybe it would have been potentially tactical for them to pick her as the first female black. But I think it's more the fact that she's black. And I think that the trend that we see with the Conservative Party, and they like to, you know, say that we should all give them a round of applause and congratulate them that they've had so many ethnic minorities.
But
this is the thing. But the underlying thing is that they do it because they know that some of the things that maybe their white counterparts can't say, then these ethnic minorities can. So I don't think it's got anything to do with diversity.
Haven't they just chosen her because she's a true Conservative? She's a great public speaker.
I'm not saying that's the only reason. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but I do think that it's a factor that is a benefit to them, so that especially previously.
Exactly.
So are you suggesting that the members were cynical in voting for Kemi Badenoch?
No, not necessarily. I think that, you know, she's got other qualities that she brings to the table, but I do think that it is an added benefit when they say, well, you know, it's the mouthpieces, isn't it? Rishi Sunak was able to say certain things, especially Suella Braverman was able to say certain things. Priti Patel. So I don't think
it is as pure and simple as that. Yeah. I think there is a tactical reason behind it. And one other thing, and this really does bother me. She isn't British. She talks about our country. She was born here because her parents were here to give birth to her, that entitled her, before the law changed, to birthright citizenship. Then she was taken back to Nigeria and came back to England when she was 16. So when she talks about our country, that doesn't sit comfortably with me either.
Really? Well, sorry, can I just address that? So are you basically saying that... So, for example, I wasn't born here, but I grew up here, and I'm a British citizen. So does that mean that technically I'm not British?
Well, so if there was a war somewhere, supposing Nigeria and England went to war...
Yeah.
Oh, that's the Norman Tebbit test. I mean, that's bollocks. I mean, she is...
It's a good test.
I'm sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Well, you've said it. I apologise to anyone offended. Listen, you feel strongly about this. Why?
OK, because I'm also an immigrant to this country, and I was a member of Parliament, and I feel British, and I chose that, OK?
First generation?
Just a second.
First generation immigrant?
Yes.
Oh, OK.
OK?
Yeah,
Thank you.
No, just to
Okay.
clarify.
You were born
in the United
I was
States?
born in the States. My father died. My mum married an Englishman. I moved to England when I was 9. And yes, fine, I had a choice. Did I want to be American or did I want to be British? I chose to be British. I gave up my American passport. So I feel British.
Yeah,
I
but
was
you
not...
chose. She was a baby. Her parents chose to have her born here, so she had
Yes,
a
but there's
birthright.
But then again, Ingrid, she came to the UK age 16. She got a job at McDonald's. She worked her way through college and she got into politics. She entered the bosom of the Conservative Party,
right.
to which she feels very grateful. And she's now
This, I'm going to
potentially
be
Britain's next Prime
absolutely-
Minister.
Yeah. I know. People are going to scream at me for this, but I
No,
just
because I think-
worry
Let
Ingrid make her point first.
patriotism. I
Finish your
worry
point.
about true patriotism and also history. You know, parents, grandparents that have fought in the war, that they've made contributions and things like this. And I don't know whether sort of when push comes to shove, and OK, you're talking about this sort of like the Tebet litmus test and all the rest of it. Why not?
But don't people that come into this country from elsewhere often demonstrate the most patriotism of anyone?
Yeah, I would say so.
The patriotic zeal of the immigrants.
It is so hypocritical because I kind of think to myself, what do people want? What do the general public, what do people like you, Ingrid, want? But half of the people say, if you come here, you've got to assimilate, you've got to love the country, you've got to do everything. Really, Kemi Badenoch is doing that. And if anything, she actually speaks against people who are from her community, which she doesn't even like the term the black community, for example.
Well, she's pretty harsh about Nigeria, isn't she?
Very harsh, very harsh. So she distances herself. And I just think we know that we live...
Let Joanna finish her
we
point.
live in this multicultural society. We know that, you know, we live in this globalist world with immigration. People move here to somewhere else and vice versa. And when people come here, the biggest problem that people say is that they don't adhere to our British values. She's done that and then some. And I don't even like her. And I'm defending her in that
Ingrid,
sense.
isn't the point that
So
you can come from Timbuktu, for all I care, as long as you do a good job of leading the political party that you're leading and hopefully run the country well?
The most important thing is to run the country well. But also, the other part of it is, what is one's agenda? You know, you were saying it's not a job. It's like being handed the poison chalice. But if you want that, and a lot of people do, there are serial politicians out there, and the big prize is to be the Prime Minister.
Can I just ask you, sorry, really quickly.
Go for it.
Would you be saying that if she was a white woman?
Yes.
OK, but Boris Johnson wasn't born here, was he?
Born in America.
He was.
He's born in America.
Oh, he was born in America.
He's born in America and had an
born in
American
America.
passport.
And then, so if you wouldn't say that about Boris Johnson, why would you say it about Kemi?
I didn't know that he was.
Yeah, look,
he wasn't born in
but then you
country. I knew his father wasn't, and or the grandfather wasn't.
Look, Ingrid is entitled to her view, but what's yours, Brooks?
OK, for me, I supported Kemi when she stood against Rishi. I think she is the real thing. I look at the leaders of our party and I look at the evidence. The evidence is every time the Tory party has tried to shift to the left, whether under Heath, whether under Cameron, whether under May, we've either won by a margin or we've lost. The only time Conservatives win is when we have an authentic Conservative leader, which to me, Winston Churchill, just a second, you would answer them. Winston Churchill, massive victory in 51. There was then Thatcher, 3 terms undefeated, massive victory because she brought in the blue-collar workers into the Tory party, and Boris Johnson. Whether people like him or not, he had a huge victory. Just a second. I listened to you. I listened to you. Bollocks.
OK, finish your point, because we're going to come back to this.
You can't say that Nigel Farage had an impact on the Tory vote at the last election.
Oh, I think he
at the
did.
last election. Well, he did.
With
That's the
Boris
point that I'm
Johnson.
making.
No, with
OK, that's the
Boris
point that I'm
Johnson.
making. Kemi is the real thing. I think Kemi is going to lead us back to victory within 5 years.
OK, listen, I tell you what we're going to do. You can see that feelings are running high. We're coming straight back to this at 10:30 because my pundits are on fire tonight. So we will return to our Kemi reaction at 10:30 with the papers, plus an ex-Tory MP and an ex-Labour MP fight it out next. But first, it is November, almost a festive season. How would you like to win your celebrations on us this year? Here are the details you'll need for our Great British Giveaway. Is the new Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, Labour's worst nightmare? And will she make hell for Sir Keir Starmer? We'll hear from a former Conservative MP and a former Labour MP next. And let me tell you, sparks will fly.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Love a bit of baking and share some hot tips. We're delighted to be joined by our baking extraordinaire, Matty Edgell, who won Great British Bake Off last year.
Woo!
Welcome. Congratulations as well. I'm sure you're sick of being congratulated.
And there's Matty Minder.
No, you like all the glory.
Yeah.
What was it like winning the Great British Bake Off? What's last year been like for you?
Winning I was not expecting to win. At any point until they said my name.
You're a very
it was a
humble
nice
guy.
surprise. No, I was just
really?
in touch with reality. I wasn't.
Was it quite a close race throughout then?
Yeah, I considered myself the underdog throughout. I think the first week I turned around after the showstopper and kind of saw how good everyone was, and then looked at mine and thought, how have I got here? And that kind of theme followed through.
But then that surely like an underdog. You on.
Yeah,
it did.
did.
Actually, I'm going to get better throughout this.
Yeah, I think it made me kind of like really tune into the feedback that they was giving me and trying to embed that throughout. So that's probably why.
Could you feel yourself improving as the series went on?
Definitely, and I think also like kind of simultaneously my confidence improved at the same time, and then that like little bit of belief in myself probably helped out as well.
What was your strength? Biscuits, cake, bread?
I think cake's my strength.
Cake.
I think cake, typically if you start baking, that's probably where you start, isn't it? So that was what I knew most.
How did you start baking?
I've been asked this so many times since...
You don't know?
I attribute it to my nan.
Sweet.
But yeah, I would say, I think most people probably attribute it to like a grandparent or something that they maybe done with like their parents when they was growing up. So that's I'll give it to my nan.
Or the major lockdown baking boom.
Yeah, banana bread.
Everybody
all over the place, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I love a banana bread, even now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Papers on the way at 10:30, but first, is the new Tory leader Kemi Badenoch Labour's worst nightmare? And will she make hell for Sir Keir Starmer? Well, Labour Party chair Ellie Reeves says that Mrs Badenoch was part of the chaos of the last 14 years.
I'm proud that she's the first black woman to lead a political party in Westminster, but Kemi was part of the chaos of the last 14 years, serving in various roles. And you think about her leadership campaign, where she made some pretty negative comments about autistic children. She said that maternity pay was excessive, the national minimum wage was harmful. I'm quite worried about what that means, actually. Is she going to get rid of, is their policy going to be to get rid of maternity pay? Would they scrap the minimum wage? These are all things that would need to be answered.
Well, let's get the views of two good friends of mine, former Conservative MP Sir Philip Davies and former Labour MP Khalid Mahmood. Great to see both of you. Khalid, welcome back to the show. After a terrible first 100 days and a Halloween budget which has backfired horribly, Kemi Badenoch is the last thing that Sir Keir Starmer needs, isn't she?
Well, first of all, I don't take your take on the budget. You'd not be surprised on that, Mark. But also, particularly, I do want to say congratulations to Kemi as the first black woman to take place in this position. And I think that's all to the good. But keeping Sir Keir Starmer up awake, I don't think so. I think the problem she's going to have, she's got Nigel Farage, clapping at her heels, trying to get the party away from where it is. She's going to spend all of her time in this huge problem that she's going to have, where she's standing on shifting sands of time before the next election and trying to catch up to what Farage and Richard Tice are going to do to her and to push the Conservative Party away. The majority that we have is phenomenal for her to tackle up. There are loyal MPs behind the leadership, behind Sir Keir Starmer, and we're going to make our way through this, and we're going to make sure by the end of this term we would have delivered the promises that we made.
Sir Philip, you look incredibly well, back to good health, thank goodness. Why do you think Kemi Badenoch in particular will cause problems for the Prime Minister?
Well, thank you for your kind words, Mark. I think that actually she's not really Labour's worst nightmare at the moment. I think Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are Labour's worst nightmare at the moment with the mess that they're making of everything. And look, Kemi's got a big challenge ahead of her, and Khalid's right about that in terms of, we've got a massive job to do to restore people's trust. People didn't vote for the Labour government; they voted against the last Conservative government, and Kemi's got a massive task to restore that trust back in the Conservative Party and to win back lots of voters that we lost to Labour, to the Lib Dems, and to Reform. So, it's no easy task. Now, a task is being made easier by the fact that the Labour Party are making a pig's ear of everything at the moment, and that's helping to unite the Conservative Party and helping to unite those people who want to get rid of the Labour government. And Kemi's main task is to unite the Conservative Party, get us as a full fighting force in Parliament, and to take the fight to Labour and to remind people that actually we can't afford another term of this Labour government, and the only way to get rid of them will be to vote Conservative. That's her main task. The task of Conservative MPs, because obviously when you're leader of the opposition, you go through tough times. It's not always easy. People say it's the hardest job in politics. The job of Conservative MPs is to hold the nerve, get behind Kemi, and make sure that when you go through a bit of a difficult patch, everybody's on the same team and nobody's sniping from the sidelines. So Kemi's got a job to unite the party, but the Parliamentary Party in particular has got a key task to get behind her and make sure that they're a united fighting force.
Khalid, is it a bit embarrassing that Rachel Reeves has been banging on about being the first female Chancellor, given that the Tories elected Margaret Thatcher as leader in 1975 when I was 1, and they've had 3 women since, and now a woman of colour? The Tories are the real progressives, aren't they?
Well, they've managed to get more women leaders than we've had, and I think it's important that we, the Labour Party, when the opportunity comes next week, work very hard to get a woman in place. And I think, as far as I'm concerned, I was very much to do so. But I think the last 2 leaders, well, first of all, Liz Truss and now Kemi, I don't think are going to add to the great stature of having more women leaders of the Conservative Party. You're going to have a serious problem. She's somebody who's severely gaffe-prone, and so particularly at question time, she will do that. And the Conservative Party and the press will spend most of their day trying to get her out the gaffes that she's made at question times. And she's not going to be able to attack Sir Keir Starmer, who's somebody who came in, who actually did the job that she wants to do. He turned around Jeremy Corbyn's party into the Labour Party that we are, with a 411 majority. So this is somebody who's done the job against somebody who's the apprentice to try and do the job.
OK.
I should just say, Mark,
go on, Philip.
Nobody cares whether Kemi. I couldn't care less that Kemi's a woman or that she's a black woman. Nobody voted for her because she was a black woman. They voted for her because they thought she was the best person for the job. It's the Labour Party who are obsessed with this identity politics, and I think Conservatives only ever mention, the fact that we've got these women leaders and a black leader and everything, just to taunt the Labour Party, because they're the ones obsessed with this identity politics. As far as I'm concerned, I couldn't care 2 hoots whether she was white or black. But I just want to pick up what Khalid said. I mean, and what Ellie Reeves said in your clip earlier, saying that, Kemi was part of the last administration and whatever. Keir Starmer was part of Jeremy Corbyn's regime all the way through, and tries to say that that's irrelevant, that we shouldn't judge him on the fact that he was part of Jeremy Corbyn's inner circle at the time that he was leader. And yet Labour are now trying to say that we should all judge Kemi because of her position in the last government. Is completely and utterly hypocritical. You can't have it both ways.
Gentlemen, let me tell you, we should reconvene in the near future. I would put both of you in my shadow cabinet. My thanks to Sir Philip Davies and Khalid Mahmood. I think you'll agree, quite a partnership. Let's bring them back if we can, Mel. But look, lots more to come. I've got to say that my panel are at each other's throats tonight. Feelings are running high about the new Tory leader and whether she'll be any good or not. So we'll debate that next with the papers. Don't go anywhere.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The theme colour for many of us this weekend has certainly been grey. A blanket of cloud is covering most of the UK at the moment, and it will be staying with us as we head throughout this evening and overnight. For any bonfire celebrations this evening, largely dry, but certainly there could be a spot of drizzle around in places to watch out for. But generally staying dull and dreary until the early hours of the morning, really. Underneath that cloud, though, it will be a relatively mild night, around 10 degrees Celsius for most, but for the far northeast of Scotland there, where we do hold on to some clearer spells, it will start off on a bit of a chillier note first thing. We could see some patchy frost for the likes of Murray, Aberdeenshire, maybe into Angus as well, and here we'll certainly see the best of the sunshine throughout much of Sunday. The breeze we've had around northern Scotland will ease off tomorrow compared to what we have seen today, but for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, it is quite a homogeneous story. Lots of widespread low cloud around, misty and murky around coastal districts as well as over the hills. Again, there will be some spots of drizzle around, particularly around Irish Sea coastal areas. Temperatures tomorrow will be a touch down compared to what we have seen today, more in the line of around 12, 13 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit closer to what we'd expect for the time of year, but it certainly is going to be feeling relatively chilly because of the lack of sunshine that we do have around across the board. As we head into the new working week, the high pressure that is bringing us all of this cloud and the relatively calm conditions is staying with us, so there's not really going to be a grand deal amount of change, but a slight shift in wind direction to more of a southeasterly could on Monday provide a little bit more in the way of brightness to develop across the far southeast during the day, but also across some far western areas of Western Wales, parts of Northern Ireland into Western Scotland as well, potentially seeing the sunshine managing to poke through at times. Otherwise, though, the cloud really is staying with us throughout much of next week, although by the time we get to the middle point, it should be turning a touch milder for all of us. Temperatures back up towards 15 degrees in places. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Just gone at 10:30, time for this. And we start with The Observer. Labour challenges Badenoch over billions for public services. Labour tonight threw down an immediate challenge to the new Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, to back Rachel Reeves' budget plans for big increases in tax, spending and borrowing, as a huge political divide threatens to open up over economic policy and the future of public services. Flood-stricken Spain calls in 5,000 extra troops to help. Sunday Express now. Kemi wins Tory crown by a smile. And fury over Royal Air farce. All RAF pilots must be sent to America for training because Britain is short of jets. Defence chiefs have been warned. Also, Labour's pension death tax will be disastrous and leave the elderly dependent on the state, experts have warned. Sun on Sunday now. Ex reveals drunken lunge. TV Chloe groped by star at club. TV's Chloe Madeley was groped in a club by a rugby legend, her estranged husband, James Haskell, has revealed. Mail on Sunday now. Moves to drop empire from King's honours. Radical reforms being considered by royal officials could see the word empire dropped from British honours. Under the outlined plans, those recognised with an OBE, the Order of the British Empire, could instead receive an Order of British Excellence. Also, Royal Book Special. Has Kate's illness led her to new interest in religion? Let's hope it's not Scientology. The Sunday Telegraph now. It's time for a fresh start. New Tory leader Badenoch says she knows Labour will fail as they are repeating many of our mistakes. Rachel Reeves causes backbench anger over impossible to sell budget, and schools face being marked down for too many middle-class pupils. Schools face being marked down for taking on too many middle-class children under plans being considered by the education watchdog. As part of Ofsted's new rating system, schools would have to take their fair share of pupils from disadvantaged backgrounds, as well as those with special educational needs, according to proposals seen by the Telegraph. Sunday Times now. Revealed list of properties that earn millions for top royals. Badenoch makes history as new Tory leader, and Rachel Reeves eyes pensions overhaul. Sunday Mirror. Homes fail eco standards. Scandal of mouldy, hard-to-heat royal rentals. And Daily Star Sunday. Guy Fawkes blazes across country are cancelled in case they cause smoke. Bangfire nights. The fun police have chucked a bucket of cold water on bonfire night celebrations. Councils have banned parties amid complaints about smoke, noise and mud. That is a real damp squib. And those are your front pages. Let's get reaction now from Joanna Jarju, Ingrid Tarrant and Brooks Newmark. Brooks, is it significant that the Mail on Sunday do not feature the new Tory leader? Does it mean that no one cares?
I find it very strange, actually. It was obviously when I saw it, you pointed it out. I'm surprised, as they have been very much at the forefront of leading the charge and criticising the party for not being conservative enough. For me, now that I believe we have an authentic, true Conservative now leading our party, I would have thought they'd be jumping for joy, and that would be their headlines, rather than something nobody actually cares about, is whether empire is an OBE or they use the word excellence. I don't think that's something that the broad public really cares about at all, particularly the readers of the Mail on Sunday.
Now, I must say, speaking of readers, I wrote a piece for the Telegraph yesterday which sparked quite a debate, 1,500 comments on their website, and it was about Kemi Badenoch, who I backed for the Tory leadership over Robert Jenrick, by a whisker, because he was a strong candidate too. But an awful lot of the comments argued that Kemi Badenoch will be more of the same, that she won't stop the boats because she's not going to leave the ECHR or look at the Human Rights Act. And they feel that it's just Rishi Sunak 2.0. Is that a fair comment?
Not at all. I mean, I supported Kemi over Rishi because I believe she has the values that I have, which is small government and low taxes. I believe she's somebody who can stand up and say things about immigration and the boats and so on that I think Keir Starmer, will struggle to deal with at the dispatch box. I think she can criticise the woke agenda of the left because they're going to find it very hard to challenge her. So, no, I think she is the real thing. And really, since Margaret Thatcher, I feel very inspired and hopeful that the Conservative Party will return to its roots again.
Joanna Jarju, Sir Keir Starmer's got to be looking over his shoulder tonight, hasn't he?
I mean, potentially. I think that for anybody who is, I don't want to say of sound mind, but maybe somewhere in the middle, Kemi Badenoch was probably a more kind of attractive candidate. I think that it was absolute lunacy that Robert Jenrick was talking about leaving the ECHR. I think that Kemi Badenoch is a lot more measured and a lot more pragmatic. So when you look at some of the votes that they've lost yes, OK, there's reform. That's one thing over there. But the other side of things is also Lib Dem voters as well, and seats that they lost to the Lib Dems. And I think somebody like Kemi Badenoch has a lot more potential to be able to claw some of those voters back by not being as drastic. I think she's more of a realist, and I think she's a lot more measured. Even after Brexit, the fact that she was the one that was the Brexiteer and Robert Jenrick was the Remainer, after that, as business secretary, she was a lot more, again, measured, you know, pragmatic in that sense, and also wasn't, you know, just falling into this ideology of Brexit means Brexit. It doesn't matter what the fallout is. I think that she was realistic about it. Yes, I wanted to leave the European Union, but also there are consequences. There is actually a fallout from it. So I think in terms of that, there will be less for Keir Starmer to be able to throw back at Kemi Badenoch in terms of, you know, across the dispatch box. That's not to say, though, that Kemi Badenoch doesn't have potential to put her foot in her mouth, because even recently, the things that she said about maternity pay being excessive, there are certain things that maybe she let slip that people might be offended by, but I don't think she'll go anywhere near as far as Robert Jenrick would.
Do you think she'll go the distance? Will she be the leader of the Tories into the next election, Ingrid?
If we know what her policies are, then I could answer that probably a little bit more accurately, but we don't. But the one thing that I'm really straight away doesn't give me much confidence is that she has said nothing. Well, she hasn't said anything about the EHCR. She has talked about, you know, the boats and things like this, whereas Robert Jenrick very definitely said that was like his manifesto.
Clear
that
plan. A clear plan.
Yes, absolutely. It was completely clear. She hasn't been clear about anything that she's going to do. Now, unless you get out of the ECHR, the laws, as you were saying, and she's going to try and change the laws, that you can't change the laws. Even Edwina Currie was saying, you know, we have to change the laws in the court. Well, you can't, because that's part of the law.
And you can't deport foreign criminals as long as we're in the ECHR. I mean, do you think, I mean, that's the issue. Can Kemi Badenoch stop the boats whilst we're still signed up to the ECHR? And does her refusal to take us out at this stage demonstrate that she won't stop the boats?
Well, I think she's not in government now, so Labour have been criticising the Conservatives for the past several years. So it's now for Labour to come up with their policies. And I think Kemi has time to think about now how we're going to deal with this issue. I think, for me, Stop the Boats was the best solution. It was the best solution because it's actually stopping the demand. An example I can give you is with Albania, where there were lots of Albanians coming over, and we did a deal with Albania where we said every time an Albanian lands, we are sending them back to Albania. As a result of that policy, people from Albania coming over on the boats dropped, I think, 90%. I think whether it's Rwanda or some other country, it doesn't matter. What you want to do is to say to people, if you come across here illegally, I'm not talking about legally, illegally, you are not allowed to stay here. You know, you are going to be sent to another safe country, and you can make your life there. But people who go by the law, come in, fill in the forms, come in legally, that is fine, and we should be supporting that. We should back the Home Office and the decisions they make.
Leaving the ECHR is not the answer.
But I think when people...
OK, Brooks, finish your point, I'll come back to Joanne.
The point I want to make is, I think the difference between Kemi and Robert will, who is a lawyer by nature, well, he is a lawyer, you know, he will talk about ECHR. For most people out there, they don't know what ECHR is. I think what Kemi will be able to do, I believe, is communicating what the impact of that is.
And the complexity of it.
The complexity of it without using legal...
But why is Jenrick more convincing on illegal immigration than...
Well, I don't find him more convincing.
...than Kemi?
I didn't support
because he talks tough, that's it. He talks tough.
So what, are you suggesting this is sort of back of the fag packet economics and politics?
Bites. I mean, if you look at Robert Jenrick, clearly he's very ambitious and he's a career politician, and he's gone from A to B and completely flipped. The fact that he was more One Nation Tory to begin with, and then now has just... or you could mistake him for a reform politician at this point. It just shows that he kind of tries to use this soundbite. He knows that it worked when it came to Brexit. He knows that it's going to work when it comes to the ECHR. But Kemi actually has enough sense to know that doing something like leaving the ECHR compromises things like the Good Friday Agreement, which is exactly the problem that we ended up with Brexit as well.
I just want to say, I don't think, by the way, Robert Jenrick is a career politician. He didn't come up as a researcher or anything. He was a very good lawyer before he went in, albeit a young lawyer, before he went into politics. Kemi was a software engineer. I mean, these are people who are not career politicians, and I think it's good that they're in the leadership.
If he wasn't before, then he certainly is now. He's trying to climb
There's
up
a
the
difference
greasy pole.
between wanting to be leader and being a career politician.
All right, well, listen, let me tell you, feelings are running high tonight. Don't go anywhere. We're going to keep this going. Plus, the Royals making a fortune by the looks of it at our expense. And how about this? A Labour MP deletes a post that says Kemi Badenoch is the black face of white supremacy. Should Keir Starmer chuck her out of the party? We'll debate that next.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
A furious online debate has been sparked after, well, let's just say a rather large man, I mean, he really was big, was snapped trying to fit into his seat on a plane.
It's led to some to ask whether obese passengers should have to pay for extra plane seats so they don't inconvenience others.
Some say, though, that's cruel. So should plus-size passengers pay extra for plane seats? Let's talk to former presenter of Fat Families, Steve Miller, who's in Stratford-upon-Avon, and the director of All About Obesity, Sarah LeBrock, who's in beautiful Harrogate. Good to see you both this morning. Sarah, what do you think?
Well, we've had this debate before with Steve and I, to be fair, and I think it's one of those things where planes are just not fit for purpose anymore. So people's bodies have been growing over the years. We know this, the obesity rates are increasing, etc. But what's happening to planes is the seats are decreasing in size. So they're just not fit for purpose and not fit for the population. So I think it's just one of these things where we need to be more empathetic to people, that they're trying to fit into an environment that isn't shaped for them at all. So I think we do need to kind of say, well, what's right here? Is it the person not being able to fit in the seat, or is it the seat not being fit for purpose for the person? And I think we need to really, look at things from that perspective as well. Instead of thinking the person's doing something wrong, how about the environment might be doing something wrong?
Steve?
It's not about blaming, but the message you can't put out, in my opinion, is that it's okay to be obese and don't worry about it. You see, what I'm saying here is free plane seats. If you're offering free plane seats, an extra seat, that's going to normalise obesity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. OK, folks, what about this story? Potential political headache for Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. One of his MPs, the Labour MP Dawn Butler, has deleted a tweet, a post, saying that Kemi Badenoch, the new leader of the Conservative Party, is the black face of white supremacy. Brooks Newmark, your reaction?
I was appalled and disgusted, to be honest. I think that this is sort of the classic trope of the left, that any time anybody who is not from an ethnic minority, that is not supporting the Labour left woke agenda, therefore they view as traitors and use this sort of language, although this language is worse than what most use. So, you know, it's up to Labour to decide what they do with Dawn Butler. But personally, I sort of find it offensive that is coming from someone like Dawn Butler, who should be proud that, you know, there is a leader from, you know, a ethnic minority background of any party. I mean, and some of the other Labour leaders, you know, have congratulated Kemi on that. Of course. But Dawn Butler has seemed to view it as some sort of offensive thing. Therefore, she's not true to her own self. Whereas she is true to herself. It's just that she doesn't think like Dawn Butler.
Joanna, what does Dawn Butler mean with that line that Kemi Badenoch is the black face of white supremacy? What does that even mean?
Well, I think that it's similar to what we were discussing before in terms of it being very lucrative for the Conservative Party, whether it's black or Asian, to have some of these mouthpieces that will say things that white people...
Mouthpieces? I mean, is that not disrespectful to Kemi Badenoch, a very accomplished person? She's just a mouthpiece?
I would say a mouthpiece, yes, because...
Like a puppet? I mean, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying a puppet. I'm saying a mouthpiece in the sense
That's similar, isn't it?
Well, no, because you're the mouthpiece if you're the one who then stands on the podium and dares to say things.
A mouthpiece for what? White people or something?
No, a mouthpiece for certain views or certain things that may be offensive to your own community or people adjacent to your community that a white person maybe would think twice about saying. And they get away with that.
Are all black Conservatives mouthpieces, and Asians as well? Was Rishi Sunak a mouthpiece?
I think that they're used as a mouthpiece, and I think that it's very...
So Rishi Sunak, a self-made multimillionaire, was used as a mouthpiece whilst Prime Minister of the United Kingdom?
Well, actually, I think less so of Rishi Sunak, but I also think that some ethnic minorities within the Conservative Party understand how lucrative it is for them to be put at the forefront.
So they don't really think it, but there's money to be made?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they don't think it. I do think that for the majority of them, they believe it to an extent, but they also understand, the Conservative Party understand that it's better for them to put them forward and have them say it, say you be the spokesperson of this view because you'll get away with it. And they also understand that it helps their career.
Okay, well, look, Brooks, I will come back to you, but I want to hear what Ingrid thinks about this.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. I do. Because if you're black, you can say something about a black person. If you're Asian, you can say something about an Asian person. But if you're white, you can't say anything. So that's why I worry that the things that I said a little bit earlier on in the show, I will be in trouble for because I'm white.
Not on my watch.
No, but, you know, the viewers probably would do that. If I wasn't, I could say it and it would be accepted. So I do absolutely agree with
Brooks,
you.
briefly, a few seconds. I'm shocked by all of this.
I mean, I'm not. You know, I'm sort of.
I mean, you're a Jewish man. Were you a mouthpiece when you were a Tory MP?
No.
Was it lucrative?
No, I wasn't. In fact, I viewed it as the other way. I sort of went out of my way to engage with, particularly with my work in the Middle East, with people, particularly who disagreed with Israel. And I think blacks and Asians in the Tory party take particular offence. And I saw this under David Cameron when he wanted perhaps to use somebody in that way. They didn't want to be used that way. I think there are...
But for an example, who?
I'm not going to give a name, but I'll give an example of somebody who said to me, I don't want to be known as the black Tory MP. I am a Tory who happens to be black, who I am a Tory who happens to be black.
Listen, let me tell you, folks, I wish we had longer, but Headliners is next, and Cressida Wetton. What have you got for us, Cressida?
Hello, Mark. We've got a great show tonight. I've got a very exciting panel. I've got Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon, so you never know what's going to happen there. We're going to be talking about Kemi Badenoch ourselves, of course. We're also going to be finding out about Trump derangement syndrome. Is it real? We're going to find out. And also the unintended consequences of the NI raid. What's Rachel Reeves up to?
Brilliant stuff. Looking forward. Thank you, Cressida. Listen, folks, let me tell you that Mark Dolan tonight is the home of diverse opinion. Really enjoyed my pundits. They don't agree, and that's the whole point. Thank you for your company, and we're back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. My big opinion, I'll be talking about the Labour Party and their web of lies, and in a Take at 10 special, more on Badenoch. So, Headliners is next. See you tomorrow at 9.
a nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The theme colour for many of us this weekend has certainly been grey. A blanket of cloud is covering most of the UK at the moment, and it will be staying with us as we head throughout this evening and overnight. For any bonfire celebrations this evening, largely dry, but certainly there could be a spot of drizzle around in places to watch out for. But generally staying dull and dreary until the early hours of the morning, really. Underneath that cloud, though, it will be a relatively mild night, around 10 degrees Celsius for most, but for the far northeast of Scotland there, where we do hold on to some clearer spells, it will start off on a bit of a chillier note first thing. We could see some patchy frost for the likes of Murray, Aberdeenshire, maybe into Angus as well, and here we'll certainly see the best of the sunshine throughout much of Sunday. The breeze we've had around northern Scotland will ease off tomorrow compared to what we have seen today, but for Northern Ireland, England and Wales, it is quite a homogenous story. Lots of widespread low cloud around, misty and murky around coastal districts as well as over the hills. Again, there will be some spots of drizzle around, particularly around Irish Sea coastal areas. Temperatures tomorrow will be a touch down compared to what we have seen today, more in the line of around 12, 13 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit closer to what we'd expect for the time of year, but it certainly is going to be feeling relatively chilly because of the lack of sunshine that we do have around across the board. As we head into the new working week, the high pressure that is bringing us all of this cloud and the